Okay.
Hi, everybody. Bill Ebert here. Wanted to give you this section of Write Your Life Amazing. I have with me one of my favorite people in the world, amazing editor and friend. She really stepped up when we were in a rush to get our book published. And you cannot do this business without a team, without people that will help you edit, will help you look over your stuff. And to have somebody at Joyce's caliber is just, it's just amazing. To be able to find somebody to jump in and really, I mean, it understands the world. And she knows as well as anybody that grammar is not my strong suit. I'm not a college graduate grammar person. And yet he is. And you need people like that. You got to find a team. So I brought Joyce on today to talk about how to find an editor, the things that you should be looking for. At this stage, you've done some of the blathering part, you've done some of the structure part, you've gotten your words on the page, and now I want to talk to Joyce about some stuff. Like my first question for Joyce would be, at what stage should they start bringing a team in to help with the editing process?
I think it's good to be well into the process so that you have an idea of where you're going with the project. At least know the chapter titles or subjects or whatever, and kind of have an outline so that your editor has an idea of where you're going with this. That does make a difference. Your editor, the first time they read your manuscript, it's just as much of an adventure for them as the new reader. And I experienced that when I edited Bill's book, as I have with many other books that I've edited. It's just if you get into a book that is really well done, the content is there, no matter how bad the writing is, it should make you not want to put it down. It should make you look forward to editing the next chapter. And so you do have to have a direction.
So you have a core. Your chapters should be mostly written. You should be at a place where you're ready to start showing friends and family. Here's one of the things that I tell everybody is to get a friend team to help you edit before you actually get a professional editor to help you edit. So they get through most of the stuff. The major misspelling words, starting every sentence with the same word over and over again. They can catch some of that stuff before you actually hand it over to an editor. Because an editor's not always free. I mean, you don't always get so you're paying them for their time. So you should probably get a team of people to help you clean it up a little bit first, right?
That is true. The one thing you want to be careful about, however, is that people aren't changing your voice. Mm-hmm. I did an editing project for a friend many years ago, and he had actually done that. He had a group of people take a look at his work, and this one person just turned those articles into something that was cold and was very corporate sounding. It was not at all that man's voice. So, and it's a little hard with friends and family to say, I don't think so.
That's true.
So, yeah, but it is good to have somebody that really knows you and really is in tune with what you're doing so that they are able to, like you said, find the obvious stuff.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you said is kind of key. If you're going to have somebody come in, make sure that you invite somebody that you're also willing to say no to. Because if you bring somebody in and they make changes and then you disagree with them, you don't want to offend that relationship. So make sure that you're willing to do that. You don't want to change something for somebody's sake and ruin the story.
That's true. That also brings another thought to my mind, and that is the humility on your part, the willingness to accept constructive advice and editing. I remember the very first time that I started working at a local newspaper, and I wrote my very first story. And I believe it actually was a feature article. It wasn't a news story. And I worked so hard on that article, and I edited it and turned it in, and I was so sure it was absolutely perfect. And it came back with these red marks all over it, and my heart was just stabbed. I thought, oh no. And my editor told me, she says, editing is a good thing. It makes you look better. It makes you better. And once I got past that and took a humble attitude, I never after that was ever offended with editing that happened. And it does make you a better person, a better, your end product is much better.
It really is. And it is difficult because when it comes to writing, it's kind of it's the artistic side, you know. It's not the logical side. And even if you're writing a logical book, it feels like a part of you's on a page. And so when someone critiques it and criticizes it, it's one of the hardest things to do. And for me, for example, I'm a high school dropout, and English was my least favorite subject of all. I mean, I didn't like the whole grammar thing, but I loved storytelling, and I loved poetry, and I loved telling a story in a way that moved people's hearts. So when I first started writing, my wife is exactly the opposite. My wife is extremely, period, question mark, everything spaces, everything's just this meticulous. And she started taking my words and forming them into real sentences, instead of a whole paragraph long with zero punctuation in it. And at first I was a little offended. I was like, but it doesn't sound the same. It doesn't feel the same. And there's a way to do both. There's a way to reach the people that need to hear it, because you're going to lose a tremendous amount of audience if you just blather. I mean, if you just throw the stuff on the page, there's a lot of people who are offended by misspelled words. They're offended by punctuation errors or repetition in the wrong way. So very, very important to stay humble.
It is. And you bring up another point about run-on sentences. Most people talk in run-on sentences, and then they write the way they talk. And a reader who's reading doesn't have that same mental place. So if you're writing run-on sentences, they don't know where to start and where to finish that thought, or just where to go with it. And so run-on sentences are actually a real pitfall. And restructuring a sentence sometimes is difficult to keep the feel of it, and without, making it feel too choppy.
So I want to talk a little bit about, there's different types of editors, right? Yes. And every personality is different. And one of the things that worked so well for you and I is you and I have been in the same community, and you've heard me teach hundreds of times. And yes. So you already knew my voice.
Did.
You not only knew the style of my teaching, you knew the essence behind it, you knew the story behind the stories. I mean, you were part of a community. So that is so powerful and so valuable that it's rare to find that. So when someone's looking for an editor, I think one of the things they need to do is there's a couple different types. There's the guy that's going to do the technical stuff, and then there's the person that will help you with the real storytelling stuff, right? So how would a person look for those different types of editors?
Well, I think you can look at your circle of friends and their expanded circle of friends. Who do you know? That question kind of thing. But also the way that I got into editing myself was I was working for the local newspaper, and we would have people come into our office and say, I have this book I've written, I would like to publish it, and we would go from there. So a lot of times it was people in the community that we did have some sort of connection with. Mm-hmm. So that is a resource. Your local print shop, your local newspaper, they have editors, they have people, and sometimes those people are looking to freelance and do something on the side, which was the case with me. I got into doing that, and I've kind of lost track at how many books and things I've done.
Well, one of the things I want to tell the audience, when you start looking for an editor, the best way to do it is, if you don't have the money, if you can afford to pay an editor, then it's easy to find somebody that'll actually do it for dollars. But a lot of people getting into this, they really don't have a lot of money or any at all sometimes. So when you start building your blog and you start building your sphere of influence, like Joyce says, you know, it's one of those who do you know kind of things. As you start putting out you're ready to go, you're ready to start putting out your chapters, what you do is you ask your community who would like to help proofread my book. And you say, you know, I want to start putting out chapters one at a time and getting your feedback and getting some input. Now, what's really nice about that, you're not actually asking to hire an editor, but what happens in the community, you actually find out who the editors are in the group. And then, you know, they say, well, I'm a professional editor. And I had 3 or 4 people that are actual editors. And Joyce is the only one who really stepped up and said, you know, I'll help you in the time that you needed. And she just superstar amount of time that we put into getting this stuff done. You'll find those people in your camp. You know, you actually have people in your midst that you don't know. That's what they used to do. We have some people in, you know, we got a couple hundred people that, you know, follow us around and go to our events and stuff. And it's amazing when you find out their history, you know, the things that they've done. They never told you that you're a full-time editor. So put it out there. A lot of times they'll say, well, my sister's a full-time editor or my brother-in-law, and you'll find a secondary relationship too. So start getting your community out there, start putting your chapters out, let people read some of your stuff for free, and you'll get people like Joyce. Hopefully you can get somebody as good as Joyce. I just feel so tremendously blessed that she just popped in at the right time and put in that kind of effort to help us get this thing done. And she just did a superstar job. So I hope you guys can find somebody like her. Also in your community, offer some people money if you can afford it. You know, try to give back, you know, give them something to, in exchange for helping you out. So any other points you want to give them?
Oh, we could get into a couple technical things. I have a couple of references that I like to use. One of them is the AP Style book. That is how newspapers are written, you know, and published, and the thing that people are most used to following. So it is a useful resource. Of course, having a good thesaurus is good. Actually, I have one, but I don't use it anymore because I just go online and search. So that's another one. I have an old book that I happened on years ago, and I don't know if it's even in print anymore, but you could probably Google this topic, and that is common errors in English and how different ways to avoid them. And so, you know, not that you're going to be a professional editor, but those things are tools that if you are an editor or if you are working with one and you're questioning things, those are some great resources too.
Yeah, I tell people, you know, you may not ever become a professional editor, but it's really good to master the craft. I mean, to learn words, learn the tools. You know, in session 1, we talked about how to find a thesaurus online and how to craft your sentences and how to add poetry into your words and romance the story. All that stuff is really crucial. Don't wait for your editor to catch everything, because they won't. You'll have 20 people read your book, and it'll go to print, and it'll come back, and you'll still find errors in it.
Oh, yes. Every book that I've ever published, I have a markup book. And if it ever does go to a second edition, that I've marked it up, and there are things that have been missed. It's just the way it is.
Well, not only does it get missed, one of the things that I highly recommend in the final stage of editing, and I just started doing this with this last book, is right before it goes to print, you know, you separate yourself from it a little bit, because a lot of times you read it the same way over and over again. I mean, everybody reads it. They fill in the mistakes. It's an automatic thing for us to just one of the things that I've found to catch more errors is to read it out loud.
That is actually the way that is recommended for editing. I personally do not read out loud just because that's my style. But you're right. That should be the final step. In fact, one of the things that I thought was the greatest compliment of all is when I heard you reading the audiobook. And my heart just was so happy because it sounded like you. And I knew you were reading the edited version, and that was a very big thing that warmed my heart.
Well, that is what, on the final stage, it not only catches things that you said, but it catches the phrases and the things that they're not you. When you do read something, you're like, well, I probably wouldn't have said it that way. It looked good grammatically, so you do catch that stuff. Oh, and it does reinforce the things that are you. After all that editing and everybody touches it and everybody messes with it, to go back and read it again. I have a final version that I'm getting ready to re-edit again, because after reading all 10 chapters, I marked up a whole bunch of stuff and rephrased it as I was reading it, because I knew that's probably going to be better like this instead of like this. So that final verbal, hearing yourself saying it, whether you plan on doing an audiobook or not to publish it for everybody else, recording it, get a little recorder, record the thing, play it back and listen to yourself read it and see if it doesn't sound right to you. So that's good training for you guys. Find an editor, absolutely, all the way along the process. Like we were talking about, don't get them in too early, because they mess with your story, and you'll frustrate them and yourself. But once you start getting near the end, find an editor. If I don't know if Joyce is open for more editing, but I'm sure if there's enough dollars in it, you could probably get somebody as good as Joyce. So contact us, we'll hire her.
Well, thank you. Yes, I'm always open to projects.
All right. Well, thanks, Joyce.
You're welcome.